The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kid Constitution, Joseph Bemister.
Hello, welcome to The Young American. I'm your host, Joseph Bemister. We are live from the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Find us on iHeartRadio, Podbeam, United Podcast Network, YouTube Live, and the podcast app from Apple. This podcast is fully fact-based about politics, government officials, government itself. We're also, we'll share opinions on that as well, not only just facts. This is through my libertarian views and my guest. Today I have Mike Miles.
Hi, Joe.
Nice
How
to
are
see you having me on today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I just retired from the Lowell Police Department, Lowell, Mass. I was a patrolman for 35 years. I retired in 2015. 28 years I worked in a cruiser early nights, 4 to 12, just taking calls. I worked 17 years in the Housing Authority, which is probably a little busier than most sections of the city, but that was my choice. I like working with people that, would appreciate what we could do, and we had programs. We did a lot. We did a lot more than just policing. We took community policing to a different level, meaning a lot of these kids, they come from single-family homes, multicultural, Southeast Asian, Latino, Afro-American, white too. And, it was a labor of love. Prior to that, I worked at the Middlesex Sheriff's Department. I was a correctional officer for 14 months. And prior to that, I spent 3 years in the U.S. Army Military Police Corps from 72 to 75. Right out of high school, I joined the Army, became a military police officer. I knew eventually I'd probably be a police officer. That's what I wanted to do, and I was fortunate enough to achieve that goal. And I'm also a clinical social worker. I have a private practice. I'm also a licensed alcohol drug counselor. So my passion is working with people that are in recovery. I've worked with kids with other problems too, but mostly young adults, young males with substance abuse problems. I have an office in Chelmsford, Mass. It's called Therapy Services. I've been there 18 years. And I'm also the EAP, the Employee Assistance Professional for the Lowell Police. They hired me back on a part-time basis, and also for the Middlesex Sheriff's Department. And that means basically I work with employees, correctional officers, police officers, their families. And I have a good network, so if people have mental health problems, substance abuse problems, any type of problem, they feel comfortable coming to see me. When you carry a firearm and you might have some issues or concerns about your mental health, it's probably pretty difficult to go see somebody that might not understand you, that might not understand the type of job you have. So I think a lot of men and women feel very comfortable with me. I also had my own problems years ago. I've been in recovery for 32 years. So I know the business inside out. It's my passion. I just turned 64. I'm hoping to do it for another 6 years at least. I retired.
You got another 20 in you. Come on.
I don't know. The life expectancy statistics tell me I might make it till 80, but we're giving it a shot.
Yeah.
And I admire your program. I just want to say I've seen you from day one, and we both do podcasts out of Studio 21, and you're an amazing young man. You're certainly a head and shoulders above most people, just with your knowledge about the Second Amendment, and it's really. I'm a hyper guy. I like to get going. I have to sit and listen to your podcast because I really enjoy it. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome
For coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, and what's the name of your podcast?
It's called Friends in Recovery Podcast, and there's myself, Ed Chaccio, and Jeff Seisel. I think we're going into our third month, halfway through our third month.
Yeah.
We podcast every Tuesday, 4 o'clock from Studio 21, and between the three of us, we've been friends for a while. And we all work towards helping people with substance abuse problems, alcohol, drugs, whatever, gambling, whatever you have, we try to help. And it's been a very successful podcast from what we've been told. To me, it was all brand new. I didn't know what a podcast was. Obviously, your generation, it's you're cutting your teeth on it, and you're very good at what you do. So
thank you.
We're learning from you.
Yeah, I decided to do it one day when I was asked. And I fell in love with it immediately. It was a good thing to do. I was always told as a kid through my dad, don't tell people, we're pro-gun. Don't tell people, our political values. Stay private. And I was like, oh, yeah, until it comes up in conversation and people ask me. Then I'm not going to be afraid to tell what my political view is. And now I don't even have to be asked what my political view is. I come up here and just...
You volunteer it.
Yeah, I volunteer it now.
Well, what I'd like to say about you, Joe, is that you not only have a passion and a true desire to be part of and to be part of it and to get it out there, but you do your homework. You're very, very well read and well versed and very knowledgeable. I mean, extremely knowledgeable, especially for a young 17.
Yes.
It's just amazing.
Turns 18 in like 2 days,
Oh,
right?
Yeah, Thursday. Thursday.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you're truly knowledgeable, and I know you put some work into this, and I know your folks. I mean, I have children. They must be so proud. Yeah, you're amazing. I think you're going to go places.
Thank you.
So what's our first topic this week?
Our first topic this week is how the governor of California, Jerry Brown, didn't send the National Guard, or he refused to, after re-looking into their mission. He said that their mission is too close to illegal immigration enforcement and not protecting our nation's border, which, I mean, I don't see a difference.
Yeah, Jerry Brown's name has been around bouncing around in my head for so many years. I grew up in a Democratic family. My father was a union worker. My mother worked in a union, and we grew up Democratic. And but their Democratic Party was hijacked somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
And my dad passed away, but he would have been 100 this year. But I'm telling you, there's no way he would have subscribed to what goes on with somebody, especially someone like Jerry Brown or Liz Warren. That whole party, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I saw that on the news about Jerry Brown. Didn't he send 300 troops? 300 National Guardsmen down there? I thought he did.
Yeah, he sent 300 to the border initially.
Right.
And then he said the mission was too close to,
That's
illegal
correct.
immigration enforcement.
Right.
And when you say we need you to make sure there's no drugs coming along, there's no vandalism, we need to make sure that the open part of the border that used to be a fence is now nothing because they're building a wall, is secure. Well, yeah, you need to enforce. When you have an open part of the border, you need to enforce it. Anybody crossing, if they have the right papers or not. And that whole state is just.
Yeah, that state's out of.
Well, and it's at risk for falling off the map. So, I mean, fingers crossed. I don't want anyone to die. I just, if we had those people moved in where we could outvote them, I'd be happier.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people that are liberal, Democratic or whatever party they choose, but they're liberal, I think they look at conservatives like us as, evil, as somebody who are heartless. I can only tell you this, as a policeman for 35 years, I worked in a very impoverished neighborhood, and every Christmas I would buy many, many dolls and Tonka trucks and
out of your own
Matchbox.
pocket.
Oh, yes. And my oldest daughter, who's going to be 43 in May, her and I would wrap these gifts every year, and she'd say, Dad, are we going to go, give these presents out? And I'd say, yes, we are. I've seen police officers do things behind the scenes. My father always said he'd rather see a sermon than hear one, so I never bragged about it. But being a conservative, it just means that you want to play by the rules. That's how I feel. And what's going on right now in this country, especially with California, it's just illegal, and it's heartbreaking. And we have in Massachusetts, we have a Attorney General, Maura Healey.
Yeah.
She should move to California. I mean, her ideas
really
are just, they're horrific. They're scary.
She's taken the firearms industry in Massachusetts and from what I heard, almost crumbled it. I mean, Springfield Armory, Smith & Wesson,
Sure.
Colt for a little while. They were out of Hartford, and they went to Springfield, and she pushing them out. I mean,
right.
We have SIG New Hampshire, and they have the SIG Sauer Academy. From Smith & Wesson had a training school just like SIG, and it was shut down because of her.
It's ridiculous. And, most cops carry on-duty, off-duty. In the event that you run into something, you might know you might not know who all the bad guys and girls are, but they certainly might know who you are. And if you're not carrying, right. And, I've been places where, I've had a firearm. I've been to Celtics games, and I've been to Bruins games. And now, of course, they check you when you go in. So you really have to – I have a safe in my car. But back in the day, I always had a firearm with me, only because I just did. I never – and as you know, you take a firearm out for one reason.
Yeah.
To use it.
Exactly.
You don't take it out to scare people, to warn people. As a police officer, you might give them the opportunity, drop your weapon.
Got de-escalators.
Right. And what really bothered me, I don't know if you saw the news yesterday, but it just kills me. The Harvard University, did you see who the keynote speaker was yesterday?
I did not.
Michael Brown's mother from Ferguson.
Oh, my
She
goodness.
spoke at Harvard about the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. And all I can say is that the picture they show of Michael Brown with his tie and his little shirt on is not the same Michael Brown that was assaulting.
Beating a police officer, hitting his head against the ground.
Right, Officer Wilson. No one even knows his name because you know what? The media never went after.
Butchers it.
They did. And not only did they butcher it, they got Eric Holder, Barack Obama, that whole administration to be sympathetic to Michael Brown, who not only tried to take a police officer's gun, what was he going to do with it?
He's going to shoot him. He's going to use
Absolutely.
it. It's the only reason why you're taking somebody's firearm.
Right. Since that day in Ferguson, Missouri, there's been over, I think it's 266 or 268 police officers shot. Just recently in Florida, 2 officers, 2 sheriffs eating lunch. Guy goes up, boom, boom, right through the window.
Yarmouth, we got the officer in Yarmouth that was shot.
That's right. It's open season on cops. And the media, the liberal media takes no responsibility.
It's only local. I mean, you only see Fox 25 Boston that show it. Only small News, local ones. Yeah, you don't see these big. You don't see Fox nationwide news sharing it. Granted, or CNN or anybody. They just they mention how many officers were shot, and the biggest one that happened, say at like L.A. or somewhere in the Midwest.
Absolutely.
They're gonna put one officer's name out as an instance and say
sure.
this is how many, and,
sure.
and they're not gonna try to publicize it too much.
If reporters, journalists, if these people were getting shot at the same alarming rate that police officers are being shot.
Yep.
And, of course, their war cry is, well, that's the job you took. You knew.
Yeah.
When you have a president of the United States sending a contingent to a thug's funeral, that's what Michael Brown was. He was a thug. He was a criminal. And there's 2 other videos. I don't know if you ever saw them, but they're out there. It shows him beating up a drunk, poor, homeless black man that weighed about 100 pounds, swatting him, hitting him. It makes you sick. And what he did to that Korean store owner as well.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't a nice kid, a poor, innocent kid that the cop just said, oh, a black guy will shoot.
Yeah.
That's what the media wants you to believe. And they take no responsibility for their actions. That's why these cops are being shot. I don't wish it on them, but I guarantee if the media was being shot at the same alarming rate, they'd be telling you the real news.
Exactly.
No more fake news.
And the problem is, if he was trying to get close to a police officer, I could see, if a police officer just hit him, once or twice to stop him, and because obviously Taser wouldn't have done anything. They tried the Taser. You couldn't do anything. I mean, this kid was how big? Like 6'4", almost 300 pounds.
He was a huge man.
Smashing a police officer's head against the pavement, and that's how you die.
That's right.
And he did what he needed to do to stay alive. Right. And it's fight or die in that situation.
That's right. And the other thing is people, there's a fight or flight that we all have.
Yep.
Not everybody wants, even if you're a strong, tough kid,
yep.
you might not want to be in a fight. You might be somewhere else. You might be thinking about going home and relaxing, or someone might be sick in your family. Somebody sets upon you, and you might not be ready for that fight.
No,
so you fight or flight. Either you fight or you run. But when you're a cop, you can't.
You don't get an opportunity.
You don't get an option to run. You have to perform. You can't just go, oh, my God, I got to run. I got to get out of here. That's what happened down in Florida with those officers outside that school.
Yep.
And you know what? That was a disgrace. And for that sheriff to come on and talk the way he did, like he was proud of his men. He ought to be ashamed of himself. There was a young man, I think his last name is Shaw, who just recently at the Waffle House in Tennessee disarmed that man on his own, young man, and he did it on his own, burnt his hand,
And he had, I think I didn't see
shot,
exactly what it was.
right?
I think it was a grazing along his forearm.
Correct.
It wasn't enough to hit like the bone or anything, but obviously it was a flesh wound.
And even with the liberal media, you think they'd be showing it. Plus, he's an Afro-American kid.
Yeah.
You would have thought they would have been showing this and lauding him, but they don't.
It's because he's not posting anything anti-gun. He's not blaming the firearms, and that's why he isn't on nationwide news. He was for what? I think all 2 minutes of coverage between CNN and Fox. I mean, even Fox being right-wing, he's not posting anything pro-gun either.
No.
He didn't blame the firearm.
Didn't have a gun.
Exactly. He didn't care. He's in the middle. He's just saying, I'm glad I stopped the shooter. He didn't say anything like it's the firearm's fault or, if I had a gun, it would have been different. It's because both sides, I think, are playing it. And a lot of people say, Fox is better than CNN. I think they're both, worse in their own way.
Right.
But I do think
they have their good points. Well, Fox has its good points. I see no credibility in CNN at all.
Yeah.
Don Lemon.
They were caught lying. multiple times.
Just horrible.
Who was the 2016? There was a reporter that was he was suspended for 6 months because he said he was in a helicopter getting shot at.
Right.
And the Marines in the helicopter said
Sure.
we didn't even get shot at. We were nowhere near.
That's right. And I think there was also another reporter. He wasn't on CNN, but what was his name?
MSNBC.
Yeah, MSNBC. And the same thing. And Hillary Clinton. She tells this great story.
Bosnia.
Under fire in Bosnia. The bullets wasn't over her head.
Then you see the video, and her daughter and Bill are just
so crazy. And it just kills me that the media don't go out. You know, they've been looking at this collusion, this false collusion, and they keep going with it. They don't let up. And it's kind of comical when you got a guy like Sean Hannity, who I think has done an incredible job. I'll tell you, these are the guys who have kept me sane. Howie Carr, because when Obama got elected the first time, didn't know how bad it would go. Then you started seeing it, and it just sucked the life right out of it.
Yeah.
You know, I say one thing: Bill Clinton was a liberal president, but he was a pro-police president. He brought policing to the level where it is now with community policing, with all the money and I got to meet Bill Clinton, not face to face, but he came to Lowell. Marty Mean was a congressman, brought him to Lowell. He did a lot for policing. Obama did just the opposite.
He did the absolute opposite. He turned the American people against the police officers
and the armed services. There was a general that was blown up. I think it was in Afghanistan, 4-star general. Right around the same time, Michael Brown died. No contingent went to his funeral. 4-star general, well decorated. Can you imagine? A 4-star general in the U.S. Army, and Obama didn't send the vice president. He didn't send his wife. He didn't send the attorney general. He sent nobody. And that, to me, is just despicable. Yep. You know, I have no respect for that man.
I honestly think the Democratic Party died with JFK.
Oh, there you go.
That's honestly what I've seen, what I've heard. I mean, even the Kennedys now, you see Joe Kennedy saying we need to do more for the African American community and the poor community, and he has one of like a 500 Mustang in the back. What he said, and it was like a $130,000 car on a lift, and above that was a car that was covered, and people are saying that car was worth 3 times as much as that Roush Mustang or whatever they said the Mustang was that he had.
Well, I have friends that were down in Washington, D.C. at Police Memorial Week, which I've been down to see the wall. I've seen the Vietnam Wall, the Korean Wall, the World War II. My dad was a World War II vet. And I've been down there several times, and actually 3 Lowell police officers are on that wall. And a friend of mine was at a restaurant, Joe Kennedy was there, and he gave the old, "Do you know who I am?" to a poor waitress. And Howie Carr has it on his radio show all the time about, "Do you know who I am?" But the arrogance, and JFK.
No one cares who you are. Let's just put that out there. If somebody says to me, "Do you know who I am?" I'm going to say, obviously I don't, and obviously I don't care enough. Because if I knew who you were, I'd probably say your name, but I don't.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think of Jeff Sessions?
I think he's outdated. I think he's a little too old for our generation. What our wants, needs, and what our generation is pushing for. He's complete opposite. I'm pretty sure he owns a couple privatized prisons, and he's pushing for more privatized prisons.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
And that's why he wants to send a higher penalty for people with marijuana. He wants to set it higher bar. And Trump came out last week and said that he's looking in signing a pro-marijuana, or pro-cannabis, he should say, bill, which stated that it would be a legal crop instead of a Section 1 drug.
I got to say one thing about Trump. His delivery might always be a little different. But, from day one, he has done everything he said he did, and then some. This thing with North Korea, to me, is just totally amazing. He took a notorious mental illness, I would say, runs rampant.
Narcissist.
Everything. I killed family members.
Exactly. He had his brother poisoned last year in the Philippines.
That's right. And he's got this guy basically eaten out of his hand before he even meets him.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that next week. I can't say too much.
No, it's fine.
He disarmed a dictator who has broken countless UN sanctions. I mean, countless. Like, he's broken on a daily basis. And now there's talks of a treaty being signed between North and South Korea after 55 years, and denuclearization of he hasn't even had nukes for 2 years, not even a full year, I don't believe, and he's already looking at getting rid of them after he said that I'd use them on the U.S.
That's
and now
correct.
Trump's getting them
And before they even meet. And, I just remember when Obama first became president, I think it was 2 months, and he gets the Nobel Peace Prize.
For what? He dropped more bombs than George Bush.
And I'll tell you exactly for what. For being who he is.
Yep.
Half an Afro-American president. That's what he was. He never, ever did a thing to deserve that. The media just kissed his behind over and over and over again. And I'll tell you, I was on a school committee in the town of Dracut for 6 years during the Obama administration. And what Michelle Obama did to the school lunches was atrocious.
It was gross. It's like eating a piece of cardboard with like wood or with cheese and I don't even know what to say. It's
how much food gets thrown out every day?
A lot.
A lot, right? I'm talking good fruit, apples, oranges, bananas, grapes. They can't recycle it. They can't give it away. They have to throw it away. And that's all because of her thinking. She knew better what kids should eat. Hey, if I want my kid to eat healthy, I'm going to be teaching them to eat healthy. I don't need the school to tell my kid what to eat.
And that whole, just whole wheat food. No one wants this whole wheat food. It goes from, whole wheat pizza and whole wheat bread to then gluten-free snacks. So you're telling me I can't have gluten, but you're going to load me up with whole wheat bread.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. You just made my lunch suck.
Yeah.
March for Our Lives, we're talking about that. It was April 20th. Mm-hmm. I honestly think they picked that day because they knew a lot of pro-marijuana people were already going to be walking out.
Right.
And they're going to use it to their advantage. They're going to make it look like they had a bigger movement. And at my school.
I was going to ask you about your school.
It's just stupid. These people, the day before, sent out flyers, put them on people's cars after school, I guess. Mm-hmm. I mean, do not put something on my car. If you see a "Don't Tread on Me" sticker on any car in the parking lot, do you really think you're going to put an anti-gun rally, piece of paper that says "Come join our rally, 420" during school? Now, I mean, we have something called advisory. People sit in a classroom, they get the weekly updates. Teachers talk to them about what's going on in the school. Everybody, seems to want to skip it. No one goes. Why would we use class time for a rally when we could use this time advisory when nobody even wants to be in advisory?
Was there a good crowd?
So the school resource officer, I didn't walk out because I don't support it.
Good for you.
School resource officer said that about a third of the school was there. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them had funny signs. Right. Like one of our friend that's been on the show, he had one that said, "I was told there'd be snacks." Yeah,
beautiful.
Just hilarious
That's beautiful. That's good stuff.
And people saying, guns don't kill people, people kill people.
Oh,
and
nice.
A lot of kids just said they walked out because it was a time to walk out during class.
Sure.
And my teacher at the time we were in math, she said, "I don't think anybody should walk out. This is class time. Right. Do it on your own time. You're here to learn."
Couldn't agree more.
And I don't know her political view. Most teachers are Democratic. I'm not going to assume what her political belief is, but whether it be right wing or left wing, I completely respect her decision to say, I voice her opinion and say I don't believe anybody should be walking out during class time because your education is more important than begging the government to take away your rights. I've never, my generation, I'm kind of ashamed to say millennial because we want our own rights taken away.
Right. Well, your millennial is passing. In other words, I think your generation, you're the tail end of the millennial, and I think you're going, especially someone like yourself, you're going to make a huge difference in society. And I have some questions, but I have just one quick question for you. What do you think of this this hard kid from Florida?
I think that he's being glorified for what he really is. He's a survivor of a tragedy, and as bad as that is, it doesn't make you an expert in firearms. So he can't even tell the difference between terminal ballistics and velocity. He can't even tell you what that even means. Can't tell you the current laws, or the NFA items, why they're illegal. Right. The National Firearms Act, I honestly think, is just kind of another infringement on our rights.
Do you think the media is really using him to put him in the forefront and blow him, pump him up so he's going to be a spokesman because he has a little bit of credibility?
He has a book deal.
Right.
So I think it's funny. He can't even write a college essay. To get it, he hasn't been accepted.
Right.
Apparently hasn't been accepted to one of the colleges he has applied to and write a good college essay, and yet you guys are going to give him a book deal, which I think it's pretty funny.
Well, I don't know about yourself, but for me, sanity is watching Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham. I've been listening to her. Michelle Malkin, I'll tell you, if there's anybody that can write about something in layman's terms, I'm not the smartest guy. I have a master's degree, but I can read her all day long. Because
you're pretty bright.
So that's my head shiny. But, those people, they got me through the 8 years of Obama because I knew it wasn't just me, And if you go against Obama, you're a racist. That's the other thing.
I mean, my own grandparents have called us a racist in my mom's side of the family.
Right.
And our dad's cousin is African American. And I think it's hilarious when he calls him a racist and he kind of sits back and he just kind of laughs at it. Right. Sometimes he gets a little upset because he has people in his family that are of color and they don't. So I think it's kind of funny. And it's not bashing them in any way. I'm just saying, I've been called a racist by people, around me. My grandparents haven't called me a racist yet. Yeah. But I do think people truly believe that. Yeah. When they say it, I think they truly believe it because there's been Obama pushed it. His second term when he ran, he said there was a race problem with the police killing it. And he honestly started another, a race conflict.
And he got a lot of cops shot and killed.
That is something that a sitting president should never be commenting on, is insinuating that the people that are here to serve and protect are not serving and protecting. If there really was an issue, he needs to go to his people and start doing some investigating.
There is there's internal affairs. They're there to make sure the police officers are doing their job. And I'm not saying that's a perfect system, but I think it's a good system when you see a police department, having multiple shootings at, New York City, Ferguson, New Orleans, LA. Their internal affairs is already all over and looking at their department to see if there is race problems. So, these big departments are already being looked at.
Well, see, I think the media dropped the ball in Ferguson when the Justice Department, under Eric Holder, investigated Officer Wilson with a fine-tooth comb, and they got nothing. All they got was a poor officer that was set upon. Right.
He was pretty young, too, right? He was in his fourth or fifth year, not even.
Yep, it's right. He was like 31, 32 years old, ruined his career. Not once did you see the media talk about him being innocent, him being the victim, and Michael Brown being a thug.
And he has so much more to think of besides, just his career. I mean, he's going to think of that moment for the rest of his life. And he's going to double think himself and his judgment because he killed somebody.
Sure.
And if that's not enough, you have people protesting wanting him killed, outside of his house.
That's right.
People are outside of his house after he just had to kill a man in self-defense because his head was being beat against the sidewalk.
And his gun he was trying to get the gun out of his holster. We have safety holsters now. I used to have a safety holster. Years ago when I first come on, we carried 38s. It was just a regular holster.
Yeah.
But you were taught gun retention. If someone goes for your gun, what to do. How to, grab their hands. Right. How to get away.
A lot of officers now, K-Bar, the old Marine knife company, they make a knife. I forget the name of it, but it's out of a company who designed it, sent the idea to K-Bar. K-Bar decided to make it what it is. It's a knife that sits behind your gun.
Right.
Or, inside the waistband. And it's meant to, if someone's grabbing your gun, you can cut them off. And it's karambit style. It doesn't matter what angle. It's not meant for stabbing. It's strictly meant for cutting. If people, once they're trained with knives, I think officers have to be now, in my opinion, because if someone is trying to get your gun, you're not going to use your taser to try to shoot them off. Another taser or your backup gun, you're going to want to use the karambit because it's very there. It's small blade.
It's called the karambit?
Yeah, it's a karambit style braid. Actually, I think he has it.
I'm trying to figure it out right now.
Right. Well, I can tell you this. Police officers go to 40 hours of training once a year, and that includes everything. It includes firearms. It includes updated on laws, domestic violence. It talks about race. It includes everything. I actually teach at a 40-hour in-service for the Middlesex Sheriff's Department. I do that for 6 months, every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I talk about stress, but not – and that's the other thing, too. Police officers – the average life expectancy of a male is 80 years old. It's come down a little bit because of all these shootings. The average life expectancy of a cop is 60. That's 20 years difference.
Yeah.
When you're 23, 24, it doesn't make a difference. When you're 40, 45, it does. And the reason that is the heart build. You have all these problems with heart attacks, the stress, your adrenaline flowing, then coming down. You get a call, your bank's being robbed, you pull up.
Even I've heard from police officers, even a traffic stop, and you've seen the video. You walk back to your car and your back's turned to him.
You have no idea.
All he has to do is lean out the window and shoot you.
That's right. And there's certain ways to approach a car. And one thing I can say about the military police is I was taught well. In my 35 years as a cop, 28 years on the beat, I always approached a car the same way. I never got past the back door jam. I always make the driver look out towards me. I could see everything if there was more people. Always had my hand on my gun. Always had the gun ready to go. Did I look paranoid? I could care less.
Yeah, it's your job.
Nobody was going to shoot me. I always wore a vest. That's the other thing, too. That should be mandatory for cops to wear vests. They're uncomfortable. They suck, but I'll tell you, they will save your life.
If you're in a super small town, I could see if you're in, a really small town, all you do is you're a patrolman. But, even so, hey, if you want to put your own, if you want to put your own life in your own hands, if you want to decide not to wear a vest, by all means, go right ahead.
There's a department up in Lincoln, New Hampshire. It's a small town, 700 people, cops sitting, reading the paper or whatever, just sitting, monitoring traffic. A guy in the town was disgruntled against this cop, pulled up, shot him in the face with a shotgun, killed him. I think the population was 700. No matter where you work, there are crazy people. Mental illness is out there.
It's
Substance
everywhere.
abuse is out there.
Everywhere.
Sure.
So we're going to also step into the next topic, why we think the pro-gun Americans, for the most part, aren't fighting back. You see them on Facebook, social media, but you don't see them organizing a protest. You don't see them going out and marching on D.C. There are demonstrations. The NRA will organize some locally, and there have been in the past. But I think now a lot of the gun owners are older, have responsibilities, and quite frankly, don't care because they know that it's a very long process to get these firearms, taken away.
Right.
And I do believe that the firearm owners right now are pretty comfortable with our president, which I personally,
100%.
I'm kind of on the fence. He's called for pro-gun legislation, and he shot down pro-gun legislation. He's also called for anti-gun legislation.
Well, I think under the the stats I read, and I get a magazine from the Department of Justice every quarter, but the stats I saw is when Hillary Clinton lost the election, thank goodness, the gun sales plummeted almost 33% compared to when 2 weeks prior. And that's a good thing. And I also think people that carry firearms, and I've met many people that do, and I've gone into situations where a guy will say, "Hey, officer, I have some guns. I'm armed."
Yep.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I really believe most gun owners are responsible. I think most gun owners certainly have better things to do than to go out and try to fight for something which they already have.
They are, yeah.
It's in our Constitution.
We
don't have to fight it, right?
38 states and a third of Congress in the Senate to pass it, and you have to get you have to get everything. You do have to get 38 states to even abolish any amendment. Any amendment. So when people say, I'm sick and tired of the government not getting anything done, it was designed to be that way if they can't work together.
Well, I'll tell you, 2 weeks ago. In Lexington, Massachusetts, they have the Battle on the Green. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I've been there. I haven't seen it when it was
right. 6:05 in the morning, Patriots Day, and I got to tell you, I have a friend who's been doing it for years. All right, he's a retired Lowell cop, Mark Poria, and his family was involved, and he did it for 40 years. I think he's still involved, but he's one of the Minutemen who gets shot and everything. But they actually all have a role to play. And it's amazing to stand there in the exact spot and to look at all the American flags that are there, and I can tell you there are already people that live in Lexington from a different culture that are offended by the flags. They're afraid of the flags. And all I can say to them is, move.
Exactly.
This is the cradle of liberty. This is where it began.
Well, who gives a shit about your feelings?
And
I do not give a shit about your feelings.
The flag itself stands for you having the freedom to be offended by the flag.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right.
So it's just crazy to me that someone would be offended by the very symbol of what is protecting their rights.
That same flag that you're burning is the same flag that someone who protected your rights died, and that's now on their coffin when they get buried, they get buried.
I've worked a few protests, and I can honestly say, as a professional police officer, I've seen a flag get burnt. I had to look away because I was irate.
Yep.
But I'll say this: now that I'm a retired, older man, civilian,
you don't have to look away.
I wouldn't allow it. I'll tell you.
You don't have to.
Somebody's going to get hurt or arrested because I would not stand for. I don't care who it was. Man, woman, I wouldn't care. That flag's not going to get burnt in front of me. That's just how I feel. I don't care if it's their constitutional right or not. That's good. Go do it at your house.
Exactly.
Don't do it in front of me. Don't do it in a public place.
Yeah, and it's in some, in the military and police, it's very frowned upon if you even let that flag touch the ground.
Sure,
no,
sure.
That thing touches the ground, you're getting your ass chewed out by anybody who's above you.
I was in grade school, and I went to grade school here in Salem. It was called Salem Christian School, used to be First Baptist Church on School Street, and I remember my 8th grade teacher running outside. She left a class of 30 kids unattended, ran outside to ream 2 kids that were hanging the flag because it touched the ground. Right. She lost her mind. They both got detentions, and they weren't allowed to touch the flag again during their school career.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And when I was in JROTC, I was on flag duty one day, and one of the kids just wasn't doing it right, and we walked into the classroom, and our chief chewed them out. Like these were kids too that were on the color guard. Like they knew what they were doing.
Right.
They were there every twice a week, I think, in the morning drilling. They knew what they were doing, and I mean, mistakes are made. I understand windy day if you're doing it the wrong way, but I guess people were fooling around, weren't doing the right thing, and he just chewed us out.
You got to take it serious.
Yeah, when I was stationed at Fort Dix, that was one of our jobs. If you worked midnights in a cruiser as an MP, you went to the general's quarters, and they had a recording of reveille, and you would raise the flag. And then at dusk, you would go back, you would take the flag down, and they'd play taps. And you know what? That was a very pristine event every day. And then I was on a burial detail for 5 months. Guys coming back from Vietnam, Korean veterans that were dying, and would go to the funerals and would fold the flag, present it to the family. And, you know, it was a very serious thing. So when you have that much involvement and you know what this country's about, not just you're just part of it. And you know what I really believe? I think there's a lot of people that just don't have any appreciation or gratitude for the country they live in. Yeah. Travel abroad. Go to a different country. Country. Try to get into Mexico. Try to get out of Mexico without
just go to Mexico and see what your freedoms have. I mean, there's cartels running down there. They're running these big regions, and it's you know, it's not because the government can't do anything about it. It's because the government won't do anything about it. And if that ever happened up here, do you think any organized crime of that size would last a chance if they're killing innocent people? I mean, just up here with the people with guns. I mean, the founding fathers knew what they were doing. The biggest army is China's with almost 2 million, and you have an unofficial army of almost, you know, like you see the size of the American people. Right.
Well, our army was depleted. I mean, under Obama, it was getting smaller and smaller.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's going in a different direction. I would love to take some of these CNN liberal reporters and just put them in a Mexican prison for a week.
I wouldn't want to.
No. For a day, their tune would change.
Or just even see Mexico itself for what it really is. I mean, we took a ride into the city of Puerto Vallarta down there, and it honestly, the people are amazing. The side shops where you could definitely see the infrastructure was down, and you could definitely see it was very affected. But it was a beautiful country. It was some of the most beautiful places are also the most dangerous places.
Right.
Like, I mean, Colombia back in the 80s and 70s, and now Mexico being the most dangerous country in the world, and it's so close to us.
I think this last week Nicaragua might have taken the lead with all the uprising down there. But, Mexico is no safe place.
No, not at all. It's more dangerous than Syria right now, and statistically. And I mean, the different wars, you have a war on terror and a war they want to fight for their country, and those people out there, the rebels, granted, half the rebels are, Islamist extremists, and half the rebels are just people who really don't like the government.
Right.
So you can't tell the difference. Then you have Mexico, which is south of the United States, the most dangerous country in the world right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are American tourists being kidnapped on a daily basis. There's, Juarez. I mean, I would just watch Sicario last night. It was on. Great movie. I looked up the statistics after, just because I was, interested in Juarez's murder rate. It's one of the most dangerous places in the world, and it is right across the border.
It's insane.
I was just watching just reruns of Seinfeld last night, and I wasn't researching a damn thing.
That's good.
So what are we talking about next week, Joe?
As always, guys, thanks for listening. We are live from the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. It helps us a lot. Next week, we'll be talking about why is it's so big that North Korea gave up their nuclear weapons and is signing the peace treaty under Trump, and why he got it to be able to be done. No other president has. Syria, and how it could really turn into a big war, kind of World War III, and why Russia would be involved. And the police at a pro-gun rally at a town in Illinois said they made a tactical decision not to enforce the town's new gun law against assault rifles when seeing demonstrators with the rifles. Anybody out there who listens to the podcast and wants to put an ad out or sponsor, please contact us or me. The info will be in the link on the podcast app, Podbeam, and YouTube Live. Thank you for having you on.
Great job, Joe. Thank you for having me.
It's Mike Miles from the Friends in Recovery podcast joining us this week. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Mr. Jonathan.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.